Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to another Build Initiative Home-Based Childcare webinar. My name is Danielle Fuentes Johnson, and I am a project manager at the Build Initiative. As you join the room and we're getting started, please feel free to put your name and location in the chat box. And if we can go to the next slide, we'll take a look at the agenda for today. We're going to welcome everyone, and then we will be continuing a conversation we began earlier this year on the importance of home-based childcare educator wellness. And today we'll hear more about how Parent Child Plus is supporting home-based childcare educators' wellness and their capacity through home visiting model. First, we'll hear from Vidya Raghu, who will discuss the program from an organizational standpoint. Then we'll hear from Fela de los Santos, an early learning specialist. And then we'll hear from Yalexa Molina, a family childcare educator who is participating in the program. And to wrap us up and help us make connections, Shayla Collins will lead us through a mindfulness activity to help put our conversation in perspective. And then we'll close out with next steps. Today's discussion proved to be of such interest that we had many more attend than we normally do in our series. So we needed to move the conversation from our usual meeting format to a webinar format. But we do want to keep the session as interactive as possible. So we encourage you to make use of the chat box to ask questions and also share your experiences. And there'll be a couple of points along the way that we're going to ask for your feedback and your thoughts as we move through this and how this information is landing for you. So with that, we'd like to take a moment just to review our core beliefs and what all of our home-based childcare work is centered on at Build. If we can go to the next slide. So here we have our core beliefs that family, friend, and neighbor family childcare are settings, whether licensed, unlicensed, exempt, whatever they're called in your location, are part of the fabric of a mixed delivery system for early care and education. Second, that the strategies and system components supporting home-based childcare settings should be resourced on par with their center-based and school-based settings. And then also that strategies to work with providers in these settings should be responsive to their needs and intentional in their development to really reflect the unique modality of care. And this is something this particular core belief is something we'll be really touching on heavily today when we hear from Parent Child Plus. And also our last belief is that family childcare needs to be approached in a systemic way across all the various federal initiatives and private funding opportunities in order to leverage these fully while also still keeping a laser eye on best practices. And we've gone in and out of a couple of different definitions and terms, but now we just to level set and go to the next slide on a couple of definitions that you'll hear us use. So we believe and use the term home-based childcare to be inclusive of anywhere children are cared for in a home-based setting. So different communities may refer to it in different ways, whether it's FCC, family childcare, FFN, family friend and neighbor, kith and kin, licensed, unlicensed, etc. And then on the next slide, oh, I think it's that same slide. So sorry, go back one, thanks. We also know that those providing the service see themselves in many different ways and have many different hats they wear. So we may say provider, educator, owner, operator, practitioner, and all of these refer to the individuals providing this care and education to young children in their home. With that, we'd like to invite Vidya to come and tell us more about how home visiting model is supporting home-based childcare educators at Parent Child Plus.
Thank you, Danielle, and thank you for level setting on all of the terms. I do find the terminology across the country very confusing, but the terminology, when we think about it in terms of our experience, makes a lot of sense. Next slide, please. So I'm Vidya Raghu from Parent Child Plus. I'm the National Director of the Home-Based Childcare Model. It was previously known as the Family Childcare, Family Friend and Neighbor Initiative. We have taken about 10 years to build out a model, and we've done a lot of research on what this model is, what we do in this model, what providers want out of this model. And our research from 2022 to 2023 really looked at how we are recruiting hard to reach providers and what providers want out of home visiting services with home-based childcare. So home visiting services usually sits apart from home-based childcare, but at Parent Child Plus, we're a home visiting program with two models. We have a one-on-one model with parents, and we have a one-on-one on many model with home-based childcare providers. Next slide, please. I'm going to try to boil down our home-based childcare model in a nutshell. The core and just unique diamonds of our model are really early learning specialists. So these are the home visitors or the early learning specialists who go into the homes of home-based childcare providers for 45 minutes per visit, twice per week for 24 weeks, for a total of about 48 visits. Our model is implemented across the country, but it's implemented in community-specific organizations. So we partner with a lot of different sites, and I use the Horn of Africa Services, which is a site of ours in Washington that we've been able to partner with. And it's very similar in all 11 states where the home-based childcare model exists. We partner with local sites that are on the community level who are able to participate and support home-based childcare providers. Most of our sites have a one-on-one model for home visiting already. This past year, we took on our first site that was just home-based childcare, and that was in Texas, which was really great. Our data on the model shows a range of improvement. This tiny little slide is just a kind of improvement slide on 4 subscales of the Feckers. The Feckers isn't the only thing we use for data. We also use an interaction scale, and we do a lot of information from parents and providers themselves. Our organization at the national center level has multiple values, but the 3 values that we really rest on are race, equity, adult learning, and data-driven. And the reason I've incorporated all of this in a nutshell is because the work is done on a community level. We are very much in a practice-based coaching mindset, and our work is very data-driven, not only by the assessment data, but also by what we're hearing from the field. So we do a lot of community-based participatory research where we are trying to hear the voices of those who are impacted by this model. Next slide, please. Thank you. So as a model on the national center level, there are a couple of requirements. One is we hire experienced professionals from the community who have the same linguistic, cultural, and ethnical match as providers and families. That is one of the core areas of our model that we hope partner sites can agree with. And we do look at the core competencies of a person. In terms of recruitment, most of our neighborhoods are impacted by trauma, whether it's concentrated poverty, housing insecurity, immigration, migration, and racism. The implementation of our model is intensive training with the coordinators and the early learning specialists, a consistent body of technical assistance from the National Center, and communities of practice and practice-based coaching for the early learning specialists to feel supported in the field. I feel like these communities of practice have really helped early learning specialists who are working with home-based childcare providers to exchange knowledge and strategies to really promote the practice around the country. We do have a fidelity model as well, like the aspects of our organization's logic model are replicated at different sites. And this is obviously from a workshop I did in Washington State. But for example, in Washington State, we partner with all of these different sites, and there is a model, and there's a model to fidelity, but it is really individualized at every single site in order to serve the people that are in the community and providing home-based childcare. Next slide, please. Thank you. So we did this research project. It was funded by Homegrown. So thank you so much, Homegrown, to look at ways in which home visiting is engaging home-based childcare providers. One part of the research was recruitment, and another part of the research is provider engagement. And when we talk about provider wellness, what I found is that if we are meeting providers where they're at and they are telling us what they're getting out of the program, they are able to complete the program almost as a whole. We have a 90% retention rate. So once we start to engage a provider, it is very rare that a provider leaves. And we really wanted to ask providers the question, like, why do you stay, right? For 48 visits, why are you still here? And why do you want to continue? And a lot of what our providers value is the relationship between the home visitor and the provider, or the early learning specialist and the home-based childcare provider. There is a degree of isolation in the field, also a degree of kind of personal loneliness, and also in a business sense, almost like a community loneliness, where they're serving many families in the community, but in the business sense, they're also not engaging with each other. So we've been trying to promote both of those aspects, building a personal relationship within the home-based childcare provider relationship between another adult, and also promoting that adult's capacity to build relationships with other providers. They also love that there's a predictability, a structure, and routine. What providers have spoken about the most is that we come to them. So our home visiting services is really to them in the home when kids are there, and they don't have to leave to get the support, materials, or professional development. A lot of providers really engage with the program materials that we offer, and the program materials are a part of our assessment and our model. We are a literacy and play-based model. We work with books and play to promote best practices in early childhood education. So that's where we get the positive, responsive adult-child interaction. That's where we get the open-ended questions. That's where we practice social emotional skills. It's really through the materials, which are the opportunity to enter into a child's play. We do conduct assessments, and we make changes accordingly. Like in some of our assessments, some of our providers don't want to work in the area that showed up as maybe the hardest or toughest area to build support around. We start where the providers want to start. So even though we're conducting these assessments, we also believe in adult learning, in really allowing the adult to choose the path they're going to take forward. We have a scaffolding and coaching approach, which you will hear about from our early learning specialist in Worcester. And providers also reported an ease of access. Like it's such an easy program to access and participate in. Next slide, please. So we also asked providers, like, what are you getting out of our home visiting services? And they are getting everything we hope they are getting and more. So a lot of providers responded with enhanced interactions with children. And then methods to enrich their coaching of parents and their teaching of children, right? Like that's another thing that I believe is a parallel process in the model. So if we are constantly coaching and teaching and working together, early learning specialists feel confident and supported in working and teaching with their providers. And then providers feel that level of confidence in working with their families. all of them report knowledge and skills of child development, and these top 3 were the major trends that we saw across the skill building questions. Social support and validation came in, and enhanced self-efficacy and confidence. And those are the 2 areas where we really start talking about provider wellness. Is yes, there are these tangible supports, and there are these underlying supports that really allow the provider to feel connected and supported, which I think we all as humans need. But in an isolated job, this has really helped bolster their capacity to improve their practices or enhance their practices. So self-reflection skills is also one of these unknown. I had no idea that providers were feeling the ability to look at themselves in their own practice and reflect on their own skills and then move forward, which is a big adult learning philosophy as well. And they've also seen, and what providers get is improved family engagement. Next slide. So we want to introduce Fela, and Danielle, I'm hoping you can take over the introduction. So thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Well, I think actually we're going to pause just for a second and throw engage the audience just for a minute, and I'll put these in the chat. But what did you hear in Vidya's presentation that supports educator wellness and capacity? And or what questions do you have for the program at Parent Child Plus? Somehow I muted myself. Do the visits with providers ever exceed 45 minutes?
Yes. We have said 45 minutes to an hour, and we really believe in early learning specialists' capacity to frame their visit within a certain way. The framing of the visit is pretty consistent. There's a greeting, there's a questioning period, there's a play and learning period, and then there's like the, I guess, goodbye message and the question and answer period. So we try to get through that in 45 minutes. It typically goes over 45 minutes in the beginning, but as you get to the 5th visit, 6th visit, 7th visit, it tends to go closer to 45 minutes. And then early learning specialists have to enter data. So visits are definitely something that we allot a lot of time for.
We have some feedback as well, hearing about the nuance of the relationships and like really responding to what the providers are seeking, the importance of connection, asking questions, and making connecting it to the observations. That seems like a really important part of the process.
A lot of our model is based on provider feedback. We have been able to, with the strength of some of our research and data systems, really hear from the providers what it is that they want. And we've also had the opportunity to get a few research grants to speak to providers and do focus groups and really analyze their answers and do a focus group analysis about what the major themes are. It has been a pretty amazing process.
So there's a question that will lead into our time with Fela, but who does the visits? How do you find the specialists? Are they from the public health sector, school teachers, mental health professionals? Who are they?
Yeah, I love this question because where we are now is that 30% of our early learning specialists are previous participants of the program. So we hire directly from the community, and we hire for competencies in language, culture, community, and ethnicity. What we have found in terms of our engagement and why we have such high levels of engagement is that reason in and of itself, is that we are hiring people that families and providers trust, that families and providers feel instantly connected to. And they range from a host of different background experiences. So you'll hear from Fela that she's previously Head Start. A lot of us are previously Head Start. We are our public health social workers, licensed clinical social workers usually fall into a place of reflective supervision, mentorship with early learning specialists, so that they are receiving the kind of support that they want and need in doing this work. So we've seen a range of places that we hire from, but the place that has been most successful is previous participants from Parent Child Plus who were either parents and had 92 home visits, and people in the community who are interested in Parent Child Plus because they are aware of what we do and they also apply to work with these community organizations.
Thank you so much. And I think that takes us really nicely into introducing Fela de los Santos. And due to everyone's schedules, we did record her interview as well as Yalexa's interview. And so we're going to switch, or we're going to stop sharing the screen and bring up that recording.
Sorry, it's coming. It's just taking a second. For some reason, it's not cooperating, but I'm gonna. I'm just getting a little. It's optimized for video clip. Here we go. All right. Just let me size this properly and then I'll hit go.
Thanks, Gretchen.
I'm sorry, this wasn't queued up already, but let me do it while you were sharing your screen. Here you go. Let's hear from Fela.
My name is Felicita de los Santos.
Everybody
I
here?
am in Worcester, Massachusetts. I work for Worcester Family Partnership, but I do the Parent Child Home Program, HBCC, and I'm a learning specialist. I used to work for Head Start for many years, and they were telling me about Worcester Family Partnership having a program to do home visits. And they thought that I would be a great source, and they would be a great source for me to help the community, the Latino community in Worcester, Mass. And that's how I became a early child specialist. I've been working with children for more than 30 years, and it has been a great journey. I've been doing the core for the last 12 years, and I've been doing the family daycares for the last 7 years. I bring curriculum, I bring all the supplies. We make a schedule what days we're able to come in for 45 minutes, and we bring all the supplies. So if it's a book, the first time I will read it. The second time, if it's a visit of 4 times, we will use the same correct book. So the first time I will read the book, the second time the provider has a chance to read the book. Then we have the books and we do activity with the children. We teach new songs, new vocabulary words. It's very on where the provider is, that's where I try to help her out as much as I can. So I have a chance to observe them before the program comes in, and I can see like how can I help her? And then on the last 5 minutes of the visit, I try to find out how things work, what can we do better, and that. I do ask a lot of questions and try to get as much answers. If I don't have them, I ask. Ask, just the greeting, a smile in my face. When things don't go right, everything's gonna work out. We're all learning. I'm learning. The children are learning. Just finding out how things are and how can I support. If any resource, I bring resource to what Worcester Family Parents do. Anything that is happening in the community, I try to bring it to her so she has more information to give out. They read more to the children. The parents are more grateful because they do get a book at the end of the 4 visits. They say that the children are talking more. The way the children are behaving in the daycare, how things, the way I model, and just model. Like I stay for a while and I role play with the kids, and I ask them. I do ask her, where can we play when we're done? And she comes in, and I just start, and when I see she gets involved, I back out, so she has a chance to try it out. And there's more funding, there's more providers that we can help. I know Parent Child Plus is trying a new, which I'm involved too, in the pipeline, having parents becoming new providers. So I think more to grow and to help out more out there, and that they're not alone, that we're here, and we're not there to judge them. We're there to support and help them out. But they're doing a great job. It's a wonderful program, not because I'm in it, but because I hear. I mean, I have waiting lists for Latino providers to become part of this program because they have heard how great it is, how much support, and they're not alone. You know, somebody's talking to them in their language. I have another early learning specialist that do the English one. I try to do the Spanish ones. I do Spanish for the girls, but when it's talking to the children, I do bilingual. And they are so grateful. Like, they are like, oh, I didn't know, by doing this, the children will learn this. And just that they're not alone, they are the mom, they are the teacher, they are the doctor, they have a lot of roles in one. And the more support they can get, it will be very appreciated for them and for us. It's very encouraging because even though my English is sometimes very broken, it's so nice to hear in your own language that you can comprehend better. Even though, I do both. It's very rewarding to read Spanish for me. It's very rewarding to the providers. When I start singing a Spanish song, they're like, oh my God, I said, that's when I was a young child. I remember these songs. And it's just rewarding that you can learn 2 languages. I wish I can have other languages too. But I think it's very rewarding to maintain your language at home. Some of the parents don't speak English, and it's so nice when they can receive a book that is in their native language. So I think Parent Child Plus does a great job on that, trying to have the book for the parents' language, or at least try to have something that it connects with the parents' language.
So that was an introduction to what it looks like and the amazing early learning specialists that Parent Child Plus has going into home-based childcare educators' homes. And so what I'd like to ask you as the audience is, what did you hear on how FELA, the early learning specialist, supports educators' wellness? And what role does the intentionality that Parent Child Plus puts into who is recruited in terms of modeling the community and their language? What role does that play in do you see these supports? Vidya, I don't know if that's something you can shed a little bit of light onto in terms of why it's so important to Parent Child Plus. Fela just naturally spoke about it. It wasn't even a question, that it's so embedded in who she is and what the service she's providing. But where does that come from at Parent Child Plus?
I mean, a lot of it is kind of built into our program and the way the program has evolved. We've been able to evolve with social justice movements from the 60s up until the 2020s. So the way families were kind of situated and family needs in the 1960s and the 2020s are very different. The American landscape is very different, and being able to keep up with who we have in our communities, I think, has been one of the great points of innovation at Parent Child Plus. And it is because we believe in community participation in developing the home visiting models that I think brings in the success. And then when we analyze the success, we try to figure out, like, why does this person stay for all 92 visits? And this person maybe didn't stay for 92 visits. And some are obvious, like parent had to return to work. Others are, when you look deeper, based on the relationship between the early learning specialist and the parent or the provider. It is literally like the gift in the community that exists there already. So we believe it's a gift to be able to go into anybody's home and anybody's childcare home. That is such an amazing amount of trust. And what they feel most trusting with is if those people who are coming into their homes have a very similar value system that says your voice is more important than our voice. And this equity-based approach to recruiting and hiring and a competency-based approach to hiring is really the success of our model. The idea that and the fact that we're hiring truly competent people who can build these relationships with providers who are feeling so lonely and so isolated is the significance of our impact. It doesn't come from anywhere else. It really comes from the early learning specialists and the coordinators who support them. They're in the community, they know the community gets to know them, and the trust is built. Fela is 7 years in. She's one of our vocal participants in communities of practice. She helps a lot of our new early learning specialists build that same kind of repertoire in the community, because it's very intentional. And the impact is very intentional, although we never know what the outcome is going to be.
We can see from the chat that several of her colleagues are here supporting her and echo those sentiments, and as well as the idea that having someone speak in the language you think in, the language that you communicate in, is so vital and provides this non-judgmental place of just base and thinking about wellness and some of the unseen things and microaggressions and the daily things that individuals of people of color and other languages face on a day-to-day basis. What an intentional way of just setting that relationship off on a good start to begin with. Yeah,
I just want to say eliminating microaggressions has been, I think, one of the pieces of our race equity work that we're doing is really taking a look at the impact that microaggressions have on our community. And all it takes is one trigger. And that person is back and living in their trauma. And while nobody knows the impact of that one trigger, we really try to honor the fact that communities know best about what they want. There is no solution that I have here that is going to help a community, but I can listen and I can hear and I can potentially develop something that is responsive to their needs. The same way we would want a childcare provider to work with children.
Yeah, I love this, the modeling from the top up, the each direction. It's going both ways, the modeling.
It's very much bottom up.
Yeah. And I just appreciate that. And the chat does as well. So with that, why don't we hear from someone who is participating in the program and see what it's meant to them. Thank you, Gretchen.
Soy Alexa Molina y vivo en la ciudad de Worcester. Una actividad que hubo el año pasado del Back to School de mi comunidad, en la información había una mesa, ahí fue que me registré porque supe del programa. Comenzó, ella me llamó, me dio una entrevista explicándome de cómo funcionaba el programa y cuáles eran los objetivos y las metas. Entonces, ella viene conmigo 2 veces a la semana, 45 minutos. Entonces, ella trae el currículum de la actividad, me explica y entonces luego ella observa cómo yo lo aplico con los niños en el resto de la semana. Y me ha ayudado porque me ha ayudado a organizar mejor y tener mejores tips a la hora de hacer las actividades con los niños, como en la literatura, cómo interactuar con ellos, cómo llamar la atención a la hora de leer un libro y cómo, aunque ellos no están quizás pendientes al libro, pero sí ellos están escuchando, entonces me ayudó a interactuar mucho mejor con ellos en eso y a organizar mis áreas también, para tener un mejor control en cuestión de las actividades y las transiciones con ellos. Al Fela entrar, los niños le dicen good morning Fela o hi Fela. Luego de eso, ella hace la transición para la mesa para ver cuál es la actividad que ella va a hacer con nosotros o el currículum que empieza o de seguimiento que hemos estado trabajando en las semanas anteriores. Luego de eso, ella hace la interacción con los niños y luego ella observa cómo yo hago la interacción de la actividad que ella trajo para nosotros ese día o esa semana. Claro, porque el beneficio ha sido tanto material educativo como la interacción con los niños, porque me ha ayudado a entender mucho mejor los tips y la ayuda de los materiales que ella ha traído, como los libros para la familia, las actividades para las familias en la casa. Eso me ha ayudado a tener una mejor interacción también con la familia, porque las familias están más conscientes y más practican en la casa lo que yo he practicado con ellos en las semanas que Fela ha estado conmigo. Ha sido un beneficio para mutuo, tanto para la familia como para mi programa. Me ha facilitado mucho mi trabajo, la verdad, los tips que ella me ha dado. Cuando alguna compañera o colega discutimos sobre nuestro trabajo, qué estamos haciendo, pues yo les notifico, yo estoy haciendo esto, como un ejemplo, Fela en una de las actividades me trajo unas bandejas donde los niños hacen sus actividades individuales, donde ellos aprenden lo que es respetar su espacio. Entonces eso fue un tip que yo compartí tanto con mi agencia como con una de mis colegas, porque para mí me resultó mucho más fácil porque los niños pintan o hacen bloques y ellos respetan su espacio, no están interactuando cada cual o hacen menos reguero y trabajan más organizado. Para mí eso ha sido de beneficio y he podido compartir ese tipo de tips con ellas también. Para promover este programa, en sentido, yo diría que es una buena opción para las proveedoras, porque hay muchas proveedoras que en su comienzo no tienen una estructura o un support para su comienzo de su trabajo, y personas como Fela que tienen muchos años de experiencia en el campo de educación infantil, sería un beneficio que ellas pudieran aprovechar esa ayuda porque te da a entender cómo tú puedes manejar tu trabajo y una organización mucho más fácil, y las transiciones en la literatura, en cómo llevar un currículum, cómo interactuar con los niños de una mejor manera, cómo utilizar vocabulario adecuado para ellos también, para que ellos te puedan entender. Y al tener ese support, para mí ha sido de gran ayuda. Yo diría que sería bueno para las proveedoras que están en comienzo, lo recibieran, va a ser mucho menos estresante su comienzo en este campo. Agradecimiento por este programa, de verdad, y por todo el support que Fela ha dado a mi programa, tanto como a mi persona y a la familia, porque la familia ha estado súper comprometida también, han sido parte, ellas comparten lo que hacen en la casa con las actividades que ella me da. Y de verdad que sí, le saqué mucho provecho y muy agradecida de esto. Espero que otras puedan aprovecharlo también.
Now that we've heard from you, Alexa, and what a visit looks like and what um, it's meant to her, what did you hear as making a difference for her? What are some of the opportunities to support both her capacity and wellness? While you think about that, we did have a question in the chat about when visitors are there and things are happening or experiences beyond their comfort or expertise, which you can imagine happens being in a home visit. How do they handle that?
I'm not sure if people from the participant can respond, people in the audience can respond. And there is one of our home visitors or early learning specialists in New York. We have a reflective supervision process with their coordinators. So early learning specialists work with coordinators who are embedded in the community as well and provide kind of the 360-degree vision of what's going on in the community and what the resources are in the community. And coordinators can sometimes step in with the early learning specialist and navigate the complexity. They're also able to reach out to their community support services. I gave one example, and I used this example earlier. We are working with home-based childcare providers in New York City as well. And one of our providers' buildings collapsed because of the rain. And our early learning specialist reached out to the coordinator, who then reached out to her own organization and our organization to see what kind of help we could provide. And we said, well, what kind of help does she need? Like, let us know. And what was returned was she's no longer getting childcare subsidies because she can't provide childcare in her home, and she still has rent and utilities to pay. Her families can't go without childcare, so she needs to find a place to provide childcare, and she needs all of the materials that she had at her own childcare to continue providing services to these children so these families could work. So we did find a space, and she found a space in the community where she could provide childcare. One of our funders really stepped in to support her rent payment and her utility payment, and Parent Child Plus was able to support her material needs. And, you know, within 2 weeks, we kind of all got it together. So there is a lot of communication flow from providers to early learning specialists, and early learning specialists do this incredible job of kind of ringing the bell and asking us to have all hands on deck because somebody is in need. So there are a lot of situations where that happens in family childcare homes. That was an extreme example. But I also am talking a lot about the mental health crisis that's happening with providers and children, as well as the climate crisis, which is going to impact the nature of home-based childcare. So these are all things that we know are happening that we need to start to plan for, because we're seeing quite an uptick in those kinds of reports.
Wow, what a great example of rallying and the connections that are made and those relationships that have been laid. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. We have, I think, from an early learning specialist that during supervision, you discuss the best ways to approach challenges or needs as they arise, and that many meetings to discuss what the community supports are. So again, having people from the community comes into play as to knowing what's available and all that intentionality in the setup. And yeah, definitely, we heard Yalexa felt supported, respected. She enjoyed working as a team. I heard her say a couple of times it reduced her stress, it helped her be more organized. Like all of those things may seem like little bits, but when you are on your own, day in, day out, figuring these things out, I can only imagine that's like such a important connection to make and have someone to bounce ideas off of like that. Oh, well, one of the things I heard throughout from the different areas that we talked about Parent Child Plus is that you sort of change perspectives and you are very conscious of the different perspectives going into situations. And we wanted to use that theme to invite Shayla to come and have a moment of a wellness activity with us, to kind of help us synthesize this presentation and what we can take away from it. So with that, I will invite Shayla to come join us and share with us the activity.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. It's a pleasure to always be with you. And I want to say, Ms. Vidya, you laid out a perfect example of not knowing what folks are going through and the complexities that people face. And so we're going to do a reflection exercise, a bit unconventionally, that speaks to having compassion and recognizing our shared common humanity with others. We are in this together. And so we're going to do a condensed version of a practice called Just Like Me. When it's done in person, it's done standing in what I will call the soul train line, for those of you who know what that is, where we're looking at each other. And then it's also been adapted to be done as a written activity. But what we're going to do today is run through it as a moment of reflection for ourselves and thinking about the compassion that we have for others. And so what I'm going to do is first start off sharing that when we're engaging in difficult conversations or difficult interactions, when we see other people and their behaviors, we make up all kinds of stories and assumptions about the cause of their behavior. Again, not knowing what anybody's truly going through. And so the example that I feel is very universal for all of us in our personal lives, in our professional lives daily, is driving. Okay, I know that in my younger years, my family called me Danica Patrick, who's a race car driver. I am cured now, no need to worry. But thinking about how we engage with others when we are driving, and we're going to go back to a time when you were driving, and by all means, put your responses in the chat when I throw this question out there, and someone cuts you off, right? I know all of you like, what are your assumptions about this person? What are the first words that pop into your mind? And I know some of the words you can't type on here. Okay, let's keep it real, right? Yeah, your smiles make me laugh, right? Oh, they think they're invincible, right? They're in a rush, they're in a hurry. Jerk, there we go. You're getting more towards my lane, Miss Deborah. Yes, slow down. It's all about them. Ooh, they are rude, right? So you see the words that coming up? Impatient. We got some word, and I love those of you who are like, I ain't about to type this in, Shayla. You ain't about to get me on the webinar. And so thinking about that, let's flip that script just for a moment. And now let's take some time to consider that maybe you were the one who cut someone off. Maybe you were the one who did this to somebody else and they're calling you a jerk. What might be going on for you to do that? What's going on in your world when you've cut somebody off? Stressed, in a hurry, having a bad, oh, look, they're going fast, out of towner, distracted, a lot on my mind, not paying attention, right? My kid has an emergency, straight up, been there, done that. I gotta go. I'm still learning to drive, yelling at the kid. I love yelling at the kids. I'm right there with you, Miss Chelsea. Stop it, right? Okay, you all see all of this? You see how it shifted a bit? Didn't nobody say, you know what, I'm a jerk? Didn't nobody say that, huh? Didn't nobody say, well, I'm just rude? You see how we spoke about the other person, but then when it came to us, we kept it real. I appreciate y'all on that, but the tone shifted a bit, right? Because perhaps it wasn't the most ideal behavior on our part, but it is still part of our human response, right? It doesn't mean you're a bad person, right? And so now we're going to do a bit of a reflection, thinking about a situation in your life where you were feeling annoyed with someone, you were frustrated by someone else's behavior towards you, right? All things that happen. And it could be something like we said, somebody cutting you off in traffic or cutting ahead of you at the grocery store line. You know that ain't it, right? Or something that someone said to you that was unkind or it was hurtful to you. Bring to mind a situation where you have felt slighted in some way. I'll give you about 15 seconds. Now take a moment to notice how you feel about that experience. What thoughts have arisen for you? What emotional response is that giving for you? Tap into your bodily sensations. I thank you all for going in the chat. Appreciate you. Hurt, embarrassed, rejection, right? Maybe you feel it in your shoulder and your neck area, right? That's real. Your gut, yeah. Headache, not feeling validated. Pit in the stomach, ache in the throat, right on. It's too uncomfortable to put into words. You all are completely tapped in. You may cry. Yes, indeed. Thank you. Now also take a moment to notice if you made assumptions about the person who slighted you, particularly negative ones, such as, what a jerk. We already heard that word, right? Then notice if you feel any emotions such as anger or annoyance, right? And again, what does it feel like in your body? I know my hands get clammy when I feel like I'm about to get into action, right? I get cold, or maybe you get warm, right? This is for us to notice both the physical and emotional and the mental responses to be able to have a moment where we're able to practice the understanding or tapping into those in a situation that isn't so heightened, right? Right now, we're able to feel what that feels like, okay? Now, thinking about what Miss Vidya said, excuse me if I said your name incorrectly, I'm gonna get it right though today, okay, I promise you. Consider what it would be like to offer a more broader interpretation of this behavior, like we spoke about in traffic. Maybe somebody's kid is having an emergency, right? Think about what it would be like to widen your scope of what that person might be going through. And then take it a step further and think about, as you broaden that interpretation, reflect on if maybe you remember a time when you may have slighted someone, where you may have said something hurtful, right? Maybe you did it when you were really stressed. Maybe when you were in a hurry. Maybe you were unaware that you even hurt somebody. Think about that for just a moment. Take a moment to possibly give a new narrative to why you originally felt slighted. Perhaps to give that person a little bit of grace who cut you off. Maybe they were in a hurry to get to work so they could take care of somebody else's baby. Maybe they have a partner who just lost their job and they're trying to figure it out. Or maybe it was just an off day for them. And let me make this clear. The point is to not make excuses for someone else. And it is one thing to not tolerate disrespect. Let me make that clear, okay? But the purpose of this exercise is to notice our brain's tendencies towards how other people behave towards us as negative or intentional. So again, thinking about that compassion for another person, right? How does your body feel now? Can you start to let yourself see other people as being just like you? Having days filled with ups and downs, challenges and successes. And maybe extending a comment of compassion to them that says something like, just like me, this person wants to get to work on time. Just like me, this person wants to be liked and feel appreciated. And just like me, they deserve some grace. Try practicing just like me throughout the day when you're having a difficult moment or a difficult engagement. And know that that compassion you extend to others will also at some point be extended to you. Thank you for doing just like me, the condensed, speedy version. It's always a pleasure to be here with you all. Back to you, Ms.
Thank you, Shayla. Just like me, I am going to speak on behalf of the audience and myself and build and say thank you to Vidya, thank you to Fela, thank you to Yalexa, and thank you to Shayla, and helping us remember to be intentional, be compassionate, and change our perspective and how much good we can do in the world. So with that, we will bring our session to a close. We do want to let you know that next month we will not have a webinar because we will be at the Build Conference in Anaheim, California. Hopefully some of you are able to join us. It would be great if you are there. There are going to be several home-based childcare offerings, including a networking lunch. So if you are on the ground in Anaheim, please find us and say hello. There's still time to register. We'll send that out when we send the PowerPoint, the recording, and any of the resources. And then we will, yes, everyone who registered for the webinar will receive an email with the PowerPoint, the recording, and the resources. And then we will see everyone in August when we will continue this series on wellness. Thank you all so much. And if you could, when you close out your, when we close the webinar, there'll be a pop-up for some feedback. We would love your feedback to help us continue to bring you what you need most. Thank you all so much and have a great day. Bye.